Welcome to Inspired Living with Carrie Murphy, the podcast, where as your host each and every week, I am going to inspire you and empower you to share your message and step into that big vision you see for yourself. I'll be bringing you celebrity interviews, influencer insights, and my personal tips from decades as an on-camera talent, TV host, media expert, and entrepreneur, so you can build a brilliant seven-figure brand. Because when you're inspired, you inspire others. So let's go. My guest today actually came into the Inspired Living community after seeing me at an event, and she was ready to depart from her corporate career, her incredibly successful corporate career. She found herself in a place where she wasn't happy. She hadn't slept in on a Sunday in years. She was gaining weight, and just in that place that she knew she had to do something different. Maybe you're in that place right now that you just know you have to do something different. And so she came on as a client to Inspired Living. And what I love about Laurel and her story is that she does not like being visible. She is a behind the scenes gal, and yet she made the commitment back in 2019 to be visible. And since then, she has her own radio show with an international following. She has a podcast. She is finding her voice and realizing her reach when it comes to her videos. Her business is growing. And quite honestly, the woman is on fire. If you're in a place in your business right now where you too feel timid or scared, or that critic is just so loud when it comes to showing up, you are going to absolutely love this interview. And if you're in a place with your business where you need support with building team, or you're looking for a career transition expert that can really guide you to make the right decisions in your life right now, Laurel Rutledge is your lady. You are going to love this interview with my client and friend, Laurel Rutledge. Laurel Rutledge, one of my favorite people. I am so excited to dive into this conversation today. Thank you for being with me, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Well, it's great because you have a very successful podcast, The Rutledge Perspective. And I have a different perspective of you, Laurel, because I've had the blessing and opportunity
Mhm.
to work with you behind the scenes, to
Yeah.
see you really move from the corporate space into
Mhm.
entrepreneurship and then making the decision, unbeknownst to you. No, you made it,
Yes.
but still, I think there's two sides, to be more visible in your business and what that's
Yeah.
created. So today I'm really excited to just look under the hood of your life and what
Yeah.
you've created in the last year and a half. I'm excited for you because you have so many amazing things going on, but it took a leap of faith. And I think there's a lot of
Yes.
people that take the plunge into entrepreneurship from the
Yeah.
corporate space.
Yeah.
I've never had that experience, but as you know, many people, find themselves at one point where they realize they're not living their dream
Yeah.
and they want to go off and start doing that. So let's go back to that
Okay.
tipping point for you,
Yeah.
and what was it that made you leave a very successful corporate career and
Yeah.
launch out into the deep sea of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, and it's such a crazy question because there are so many people who do make this decision, and you'll have the people that support you, and then the people are like, "Are you nuts? Do you know what you're doing? Do you know how much money you're making? You know this role that you have?" And for me, it was really, I reached a point where I just wasn't me. I was tired. I
Mm,
wasn't happy. I hadn't slept on a Sunday in 5 years. And I'm not a person that avoids conflict, but I was in constant conflict. And so I will tell people who are in corporate who are listening, the trauma is real, the struggle is real. And I'm always careful with using trauma or PTSD or those kind of things, because when we think about that, we think about the people who have served in our military and some of the things that they've seen, or we think
mhm.
about people who have escaped really abusive relationships, or really that trauma that we see that's mainstream. But when you are in an organization over your career, whether it's the last one you left or one you've been in before, where there's constant microaggression, where you're constantly trying to prove that you're not stupid, even though they hired you because they know you weren't,
Right.
where you're fighting a culture that is so contrary to your value system and how you're aligned that you
Mm,
start to question yourself and think you're crazy. I'm
right.
here to tell you, you're not crazy and you have a choice. And so I reached the point, December of 2016, I thought, what am I doing? I'm not enjoying my family. When I am with them, I'm not present. I've
Mm,
gained 50 pounds. I'm not sleeping. I was miserable. And it just hit me at that moment. And I said, but I have a choice. I have a choice and I choose
right.
me. And
Yeah.
and I just said, whatever happens, I'm going to step out on faith. Lord, just I got to go. And so help me make a way. And
Yeah.
here we are.
By the way, I do have to say, you look pretty darn fabulous. I have to say,
Thank
you
you.
look happy. You
Yeah.
look like you're kind of like reached your zone. And I think here's the
Yeah.
thing that I think is what eludes most people is that you take the jump and then it just all shows up
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's really, I mean, I hate to say the word journey because it's so
Yeah.
overused, but it really is. Can you
It
share with
is.
us maybe a few of the pivotal
Sure.
things that you have learned since
Right.
jumping off? Like, what have been some of the key
Yeah.
components or aspects that you've learned that have helped guide you into where you are right now?
Yeah. I think there are probably three key things. One of those is grace is so important.
Hmm.
Grace is number one. You have to give yourself some grace because there are going to be so many things that come at you that are unexpected, that are different. When you're taking this leap, whether you are single like me or whether you've got a family at home, when you are doing this entrepreneur thing and it's just you, all of that head trash that may have been there, but you were able to
Right.
bury comes right to the forefront. And
Yep.
so
Like on a
you've got to give yourself
loudspeaker
some,
and a microphone,
yeah,
right? Like
right
just
here,
like a
right?
megaphone. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, warning, Will Robinson, right? And so you've got to give yourself some grace to see that, understand it, feel your way through it, and then decide how you're going to process that and move. And whether that's having a therapist or having a village, whatever it is, but give yourself some grace. The
Mhm.
second thing is corporate is very different than entrepreneurship in the
In what way?
tactics,
Okay.
right? So the language on the surface is the same, but the way you show up, how you show up, and what it means is very different. So, having spent my time in corporate, I know all the language, right? I know marketing, I know sales, I know infrastructure, I know setting up a budget, I know all of these kind of things. But when you put that in a context of an entrepreneurial space, especially if you're talking a service business and not a product based business, there are many, many more things that you've got to think about that may not have necessarily been at the forefront of what you did before. Even if you
Right.
were a marketing specialist or you were an accountant or you were, HR like me, there are things you understand fundamentally. Even because I came out of professional services, I worked at one of the big firms. So I even get the services piece, but it is different when it is just you and social media and you're just trying to put
Exactly.
your
I was going
brand
to say,
out there.
you have a corporate team, you have, all the different
Yeah,
divisions that are handling different things. And when really,
exactly.
launch into entrepreneurship, you're really, for the
Hmm.
beginning, you're a solopreneur
Yes,
trying to put these pieces of a puzzle together that you've
yes,
never done before.
exactly. And
Yeah.
and you've got to be okay with the fact that you need to, like, number three is be able to say, okay, I don't understand. And I remember specifically having a conversation with a coach after having done some like boosted posts, and we were having a conversation about why they didn't work. And I remember she said, did you boost a post or did you do an ad? I'm like, I don't know, I just paid some money. And at that point I said, you know what, I'm going to do what I always told people to do in corporate, which is, one, ask the question. I said, so I'm going to tell you, we're going to assume that I know nothing and you're not going to hurt my feelings. So assume I know nothing and let's start from zero. And by doing that and giving people permission to teach you something, because none of us knows everything, it
Right.
really opened up that door for me to be able to say, okay, here's what I mean when I say, email. And here's what they mean when they say funnel or nurturing campaign. And here's how that connects. And so giving yourself grace, understanding that there is real trauma, but you have a choice, and then being ready to learn something that's
Mhm.
different and putting your ego aside to say, if I really want to build this business, then there's stuff I need to learn, and finding those experts that can help you. Those are probably the top three learnings for me. that really said, Laurel, if you say you're going to do this,
Yeah. Well, you better go. You
you
better
got to
go.
do this.
And
Yeah.
it is so different when you are a leader in a corporate space and then you find yourself kind
Yes.
of on this island going, okay, now what do I do? You know, you're really proficient and efficient
Yeah.
at the skill in which you teach and you do. But
Mm-hmm.
running a business, especially with everything online, is very different. And you made a
Yes.
decision back in 2019. So we've worked together now
Mm-hmm.
for quite a few years. You
Yeah.
were a part of our Luminary Leadership Group, which is
Yes.
an amazing group of just soul-filled women coming together
Mm-hmm.
who really want to build influential brands. And we've been
Right.
working with you for a while. And I have to say, it wasn't overnight, but
No.
there was a flip that went off in you that
Yes.
you took the Kool-Aid that I had been asking you to drink around being visible and
Yes.
committed to that. I want to talk
Mm-hmm.
about, because you're someone who like is very clear. You don't like being on camera. You don't want to
Yes.
be visible. You're a behind the scenes kind of gal. And I know
Yeah.
that someone's listening right now who feels the exact
Yes.
same way.
Yes.
And yet you decided 2019, I'm going to be visible. I want to hear about
Yes.
that decision, what helped you make that decision, and what has happened
Yeah.
since you made that decision.
So yeah, it's been an incredible journey because that's the other piece around that grace and learning something, right, from experts is even as I looked at more from my business, because you have been with me for so long and kind of the HR piece, and that is my expertise. And I'm a different kind of HR person, right? Because I've got an accounting degree and an MBA and I come at it from a business perspective. But that visibility piece, I mean, I didn't even have a picture on LinkedIn on purpose. And I was only on Facebook because my salsa group, that's where we did our, put all the routines when we had to practice. That's the only reason I was on social media. I was like, Instagram, I'm not doing that. Right. So, but in 2019, I said, but here's the difference. When I decided to do this business, I remember sitting down with you in Manhattan Beach because I said, okay, we're going to kick off. And I said, I'm going to come see you. You're like, really? You want to do it in person? I'm like, absolutely. And I remember sitting there and we were talking about what the business was going to be called. And we said, well, it's you're the brand. So just use your name. And in 2019, when we came together and we're setting the intentions, I said, if this is really going to be me and it's going to be my name, people don't know me because I've never been out there.
Mm-hmm.
I just haven't been on purpose. And so if I'm going to build, I heard your voice. People need to be able to find you. If you want them to work with you, they have to be able to find you. And if you're not there, they can't find you. And so I said, 2019, I'm just going to write it down. I'm going to be more visible in 2019. And that meant for me doing more video, getting the podcast going, doing some lives, taking more pictures, all of these kind of things that I still don't love, but
But you're learning to like them.
but I'm learning to like it. And it's actually becoming, because I had to put it in the context of it's not about me.
Yes.
Which is my philosophy around how I work with people. My being visible is not about me. My being visible is about service because I
Okay,
can't
hold it
serve
up.
if nobody can
Hold it
find
up.
me.
I mean, we can say this and preach it from the top of the mountains,
Yeah.
but I know, Laurel, that someone needs to hear that one more time.
Yes.
So I'm going to give you the mic one more time to repeat that.
Yes. So I had to remember that being visible was not about me. Being visible was about service. And I couldn't serve without being visible.
Amen, sister. Right.
And it made a difference, right? Because then when I watched videos, because I've been on camera and been on big stages and stuff before just because of my roles. But the thing about the camera for me was I hate seeing myself on camera. That's head trash, right? Oh,
Sure.
why did I do that? I got 50 more pounds on me, all that stuff that's absolutely irrelevant. But when I flipped my mindset to say this is about service, then I could focus on, am I delivering the message I wanted to
Right.
deliver?
Right.
And
Yes.
that helped me a lot. It helped me a lot. And so because I started doing that and I started saying yes to things, this radio show came up. And at the end of at the end of last year, because it'll be a year in March. I can't believe it. At the
Wow.
end of 2019, I was a guest on the show. Somebody just called me up, a network person, and said, "Hey, I need somebody on this radio show. Will you do it?" And I'm like, "Sure." And I went in to do the radio show. Didn't know the radio show streamed live. Had no idea. And I was just going to go. And I thought, no, Laurel, you've never met these people. Look nice,
You
dress for
better
the
put
part.
yourself together. Yeah.
Thank goodness I did,
Thank
because it was
goodness.
live
Yeah.
streamed. And the producer after that said, "Hey, I really think you need to do a show." I was like, "Sure, man, let me think about it." And the next time we had a luminary thing, I said, "Oh yeah, they asked me to do this show." And everybody was like, "Are you nuts? You absolutely need to
Yeah,
say
I love
yes."
that you actually came and was like, "Should I do this? I don't know."
Right.
Uh, and we're like, "Are you bananas?" Like,
Are you
the answer
bananas?
is yes. The answer is
Yeah,
yes. Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. And so I went to do the show. I called her back and we met in January and I said, "Hey, if there's still a place, I don't know." And she said, "Absolutely." And we started on March 3rd of 2020. And now the show, it's internet radio and it's live every week. So I am live, even if I do nothing else, I am live on camera every week for an hour. The show now reaches a ton of people nationally, but also is reaching globally. So Philippines and India and Australia and Spain and all of these places, just delivering a message of transformation and a message of you can do
Mhm.
this. You're not alone. I'm not perfect. We're going to talk the truth here. We're going to speak truth to power. We're going to be authentic. We're going to be vulnerable. We're going to have some fun, but we're just going to chit chat. And so it's been fantastic. And through that, doing more video for my podcast, getting back to doing that because I had kind of tapered off and doing some lives. And every time I put a picture up, every time I do a live, anything that shows me, the feedback is like exponentially greater,
Right.
exponentially,
I have such a
which I
big
still don't
smile
get,
on
but it
my
is.
face. If people are listening and they can't see me, like the smile is literally ear to ear because
Yes.
you made this decision to be visible. Like somehow, some way, this radio show found you, right?
Yes.
They asked you
Yeah.
to do your own show. Here you
Yeah.
are, almost a year in with international exposure. You're going
Yes.
live. You've been featured in magazines, right? All
Mm-hmm.
of these opportunities are showing up. You're getting
Yeah.
clients slowly but surely.
Yes.
And it all came down to you making the
Mm-hmm.
decision. You
Yes.
you weren't waiting for someone to find you.
Right.
You had to say, in order to be found, I have to show up.
Yeah.
And it is so important right now, Laurel, that someone hears this
Yeah.
because just like you, they know they bring incredible skills and assets to the world, to people,
Mm-hmm.
that they can really transform lives. I mean, you are
Right.
amazing at what you do in not only the
Thank
HR
you.
space, but in the career transition space. I mean, you really are
Thank
an
you.
expert in that. And, you needed to find a platform and you
Yes.
did. So tell me about what's next with that, and now that you have
Yeah.
committed to being visible, excuse me, like, how do you feel? What does it feel like now
Yeah.
compared to what it felt like in the beginning?
Sure. It's again that whole grace thing and coming into your own. So, decided to be visible in 2019, started doing all of that stuff. And it wasn't until probably the end of 2020, probably that fourth quarter of 2020, that I thought, something still isn't, it's not yet me. It's not yet me. And then I completely redid like the about section on my page. And I'm like, look, here's what we're going to do, right? I'm your biggest cheerleader. We're going to speak truth to power. I got you. It's all the stuff that I actually say.
Mm,
And so that visibility piece also enabled me to say, yes, I am still very professional. You can take me into corporate, right? Because that's where I came out of.
I can button
But
up
there's,
real nice for you.
I
Yeah.
can button up real nice. And there are so many other pieces to me that make me really good at what I do. And so that ability to actually, because it's my business, show up all of me, which many
Yes.
times in corporate, and that's why I work with so many women and can want to continue to work with so many women and men. I just, work with a lot more women that are having that challenge in corporate America, especially women of color, because you don't bring your whole self to work. You put the mask on, right? You
Right.
only show certain pieces so you are acceptable and so other people are comfortable.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is my business. This is my business. And so if you want to work with me, then you need to know who I am completely. Now, that doesn't mean air all your dirty laundry. That's not what I'm talking about. But, really show all sides of your personality and all
Yeah.
of your perspectives, because that's what people need to see. And so for me, it has really, as I moved into the end of 2020 and 2021 and all that madness that happened in
I'm like, you
2020,
had a lot of content.
I
You
had
had
a
a lot of
lot of
content.
content.
Yeah.
I had a lot of content and a lot of things that said to me, this is the space that I want to be. This is how I want to be visible. This is how I want to show up. And it is, I mean, this is, while it is technically four, just because when I set my LLC up and made it 4 years, this is really 3 years in this business.
Mhm.
And this is really now finally getting to be so much more who I am and how
Yeah.
I show up and what I want to say and how I deliver that from the standpoint of the pain that I've felt and the conversations I've had with hundreds and thousands of people from the plant floor to the boardroom about the pain that they're feeling and how
Yes.
we can move that and morph that. And in order for people to know it's okay, I have to tell them it's okay and tell them I've been in that pain too. And I
Yeah.
survived. And my story is different, but just because my story isn't tragic doesn't mean it wasn't difficult. And if your
Oh,
story
that is
isn't
so
tragic, it
good.
doesn't mean it's not difficult. And
Yes.
so I just don't want anyone to sit in that overwhelm and sit in that
Yeah.
place where they think they're crazy because you're not crazy.
You're not crazy. And you said something. I mean, obviously, I'm not a woman of color, but I think all women at some point feel
Yeah.
like they have to put on a mask, a
Yes.
mask to please. I need to show up a certain way. I'm scared of
Yes.
being judged. What if
Yeah.
someone doesn't like me? What if I say something that, ruffles too many feathers?
Right.
And I know in our conversations, Laurel, that when you were more raw and more
Hmm.
vulnerable, like some of your posts, like they went
Yeah.
viral, like they went
Yes.
crazy because your real true self,
Hmm.
like it pours through what
Yeah.
you do and other
Yeah.
people feel it. And
Hmm.
they're with you. They're your ally. They're your
Yeah.
friend. They're your champion. And you can't do that with a
Yeah.
mask on. You know,
No,
have you seen that as well? I know you have. So talk a little bit about that because that
I
was not
have.
easy for you because
No.
you talked about you like to hide a little bit and you
Yes.
were very private. So I
Yes.
know it took courage for you
Hmm.
to write some of the things that you have,
Yeah.
for you to be vocal about some
Hmm.
of the things that you feel and that you've
Yeah.
experienced. What has that been like for
Yeah.
you?
It's been one, it's been freeing. It's been
Mhm.
absolutely freeing. And it is such a dance that we walk as women, and in particular as women of color, of
Mhm.
that whole code switching. You get so programmed to be appropriate. And don't get me wrong, there are, like, you don't wear sweats to a board meeting, right? There really is such a thing
But you
as
can wear them on Zoom.
appropriate. You can on Zoom from the bottom down, right? And so there is such a thing as being appropriate and knowing your own stuff, right?
Sure.
We all have stuff, and we got to acknowledge that and know what's appropriate and what's not. And it is really, really critical, I think, to truly be who you are. And so there were two things that happened for me that I was just shocked by. One was, I'm originally from Odessa, Texas, and we had a mass shooting in Odessa. And after that, I just wrote this thing called "I'm from Odessa," and it just happened. I just felt like I needed to say something, and I did. And a friend of mine said, "Oh my gosh, Laurel, can you make that public? Because my personal Facebook page is still private." And I said, "Sure." And then I didn't, because I'm like,
I
I'm
don't
not
know.
doing
Do
that.
I want that to go out there?
I'm not
Yeah.
doing that, right? And then I went back to her like 2 hours later. I'm like, "Can you share it yet?" No, and I hadn't done anything. And because I'm thinking, if she still wants it, then I'll have to think about it, right? And she's like,
Right.
"No," and I've been wanting to share it with people. I'm like, so
Mm.
I made it public. And I mean, out of the woodworks, people who grew up in Odessa and were living somewhere else, people I didn't know, people who knew my dad and my family. The mayor's daughter actually reached out and said the mayor wanted to read it on the air. It
Incredible.
was
Come on.
incredible, but it was how I felt about the situation and about my town. And then when the George Floyd murder happened, I was actually planning to do a check-in for Luminary, because you were telling me, "Hey, we haven't heard from you guys, do a check-in." I planned to do like 5 minutes. "Hey, here's what's up. I'm cool." One, I went live on my business page and not in Luminary. So I hadn't intended to do that. And that 5 minutes turned into 25.
Mm.
And the same thing happened because I wasn't ugly, and I wasn't nasty, but I was real, because I was very upset and I was very angry for a very long time, and still, had that slow burn,
Sure. Of
um,
course.
and really kind of a slow simmer around. Okay, I'm not going to bury this like we've always been taught to do. I'm going to talk about this, and then I'm going to have to
We
figure
can't
out how
bury
to
it.
put
Yeah.
this in context. We
Yeah.
can't,
Yeah.
and how to put it in context and still function, which is
Yeah.
the hard part. And
Right.
so, so there are things like that have come out, things I've said, things I've posted, that have been much more real around how you're feeling and how you show up. The same thing on the radio show. Every time I talk about stuff, people are like, "Please say that again," because nobody has said that.
Take me
and
to
and
church,
which I
Laurel.
can't do,
Yeah.
right? Because I can't remember what I said. But it's really important to just be who you are. And so for me, that's been a big piece,
Yeah.
the getting to the expertise of how to show up, right? How to be on camera, how you talk about things, how you are authentic, that expertise that came from you, and then deciding to just do it and figuring they either love you or they hate you, but they love or hate you now. And
Yeah.
if they don't know you, then they can't think anyway. So just
And
do it. It
you know
doesn't
what? And there's
matter.
just there's just going to be unhappy people in the world who have nothing
Yes.
better to do than to troll
Right.
other people and write nasty things. And
Yes.
I think that it's
Yes.
just so important. And you hear the word authenticity so much. And
Mm-hmm.
I really encourage, if you're listening right now, to go follow Laurel, listen to her
Oh, thank
shows,
you.
listen to her podcasts. I mean, you won't find a more refreshing, you know, perspective. I love that. And just so authentic. And, but
Yeah.
you
Thank
had
you.
to get comfortable with that. And there's this, I think a
Yeah.
part of self censorship, that you're
Yes.
like, ooh, do I write that? Do I not write that? Do I say that? Do I really
Mm-hmm.
say that? Or do I not say
Yeah.
that? And I think that you have to
Yeah.
just be really true to you. And like you said, I wasn't ugly, but I was real. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the
Mm-hmm.
space that we can all live. I really
Yes.
do. I think that you can be real and
Yeah.
not be nasty. That's what I
Yeah.
would like to think anyway. So
I
tell me
agree.
about surrendering to the flow
Yeah.
and what that has meant to you. Share that with
Oh,
us.
that's been a big one. Everybody picks words for a year, right? And I had last year was clarity, conviction, and compassion. And that really, who knew how timely that would be, right? For
Really?
for
Yeah.
2020.
Yeah.
And then as I was having a crisis, right? Like a crisis of confidence, a crisis of what am I doing? Do I just need to go get a job? I mean, all of that kind of stuff towards the end of the year. And I just sat down and because I have an amazing therapist. I've had her for forever. And I sat down and I said, okay, I'm just going to pray about this. I'm just going to meditate about this. I'm just going to sit in this space and say, what is it? What is this?
Mhm.
Because this is coming from out of nowhere. What is this? And I just heard this word, surrender. Now, I am a woman of faith, um, and I'm also a woman that knows myself well enough to know that God has to burn a bush for me. I don't read signs. I mean, you need to tell
There's
me,
no little
Laurel, go
tapping on the
do.
shoulder.
No,
Yeah.
no, no. It's got to be big.
Yeah.
And so this was that clear, like just surrender, and just be in the flow. And so that for me
Mhm.
was my word for 2021. And it's not surrendering from the standpoint of giving up. I just give up. No, no, no. It is about what is moving and really acknowledging and understanding that flow and sitting intentionally in that flow, even if that flow feels uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And not the never surrender to that's been like taken over, that we're never going to surrender in that fight, 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 fight.
Right.
That's not what I
That
mean
real
either. It is
masculine
true.
energy. Yeah.
Yeah, that just, it's really about when you get really crazed, like I do. I get these whirling dervish. I got so much going on and it almost paralyzes you.
Yeah.
Pause, surrender to the flow.
Big deep
What's really
breath.
supposed to be
Yeah.
going on? Take a deep breath, get up a minute, take 15 minutes, take 30 minutes, whatever, walk away, get grounded again, and then come back. Because if you're surrender and you're in the flow, it just happens. It just
Yeah.
happens. And you still have to be in action. You still have to be intentional. But you also, when you're surrendering to the flow, you're not so thrown off when things have to change or shift. It
Mhm.
is, nope, I still know my end goal. I still know where I'm going. Just if I'm in flow, yeah, that didn't feel like it was the right thing, but here's this other thing that's showing up. Let me explore that, and that may make some more sense. And that is happening a lot with what I'm doing, with changing up what my about section looks like, right? Changing up and putting more pictures, getting more pictures.
Right.
All of those things that really just are in flow to say, no, this is where you want to be. And really thinking, I love this radio show. I am
Yeah.
stunned.
From the
The
woman
person
who
that
didn't
thinks it.
want to be visible.
I hate being visible. And I love this show. If she told me tomorrow, Laura, we're going to stop the Rutledge Perspective, I would be devastated, devastated. And I love it. And I love doing the podcast and I love interviewing people. And it's just been a real surprise to step into that space and to also own the fact that I do enjoy working with people one-on-one, and my energy level is so much better and I can serve so much bigger if I have a few one-on-one that I can really focus on, but then have these groups where I can really spread the energy and they are able to take their energy and energize others.
Absolutely.
And so that,
Absolutely.
again, that's surrendering to the flow, right? It's not a change. I'm not like not doing one-on-one and all I'm doing is groups, but that enabling groups and having a real focus on that, because that is an ability to serve bigger and broader
Absolutely. And
while honoring myself.
you can affect so much greater change when you're working
Yes.
in groups than one-on-one. I mean, there's a level of intimacy
Yeah.
in a one-on-one that I still love.
Yeah.
It's why I have the luminaries, because man, do I still
Yes.
love that. But you can't scale and
Yes.
grow one-on-one. And you said a
Right.
couple things I just want to circle back to really quickly, Laurel.
Hmm.
You said 3 years. In
Yeah.
my experience, 23 years as an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
3 years. It's like the
Yeah.
tipping point. It's like
Hmm.
either you're feeling the momentum or you're not, I feel. And I feel like
Yes.
things really, it now, if you're doing the work, right, and
Yes.
you've been consistent, it really is that 3 to 5 years that you're
Yeah.
building, and the momentum starts to come when you've
Hmm.
been visible for a year and you're doing all the
Yes.
things. And it takes a good year to even figure out what in the world that is and
Yeah.
what the message is and
Yes.
who you're trying to reach and who you
Yeah.
are in this new space. So if you're
Right.
listening and you just started your business and it feels hard and it feels like a struggle and you feel like you're literally pushing a boulder up a hill
Yes.
every single day, like it does get easier.
Yeah.
And then there's different boulders that you start to push, so
Hmm.
I want to just honor that and let you know that that's completely normal, and that tells
Yes.
you that you're in a really good place. The fact that you're
Yeah.
feeling that momentum and things are getting clear and you feel in your zone. And for me, learning to surrender to the flow has been huge because I love to make stuff happen. I
Yeah.
am a manifester. I have an idea and I'm like, let's get her done. And
Yes.
sometimes it just doesn't happen. And
Yeah.
sometimes, a pandemic hits and, you have a baby at 45 and you're
Yeah.
like, and I think, like, I love what you said. It's not about giving up. It's about
Hmm.
adaptability. It's about
Yes.
feeling in your body. Am I in the right place? Am I going in
Hmm.
the right direction? And then
Yeah.
being able to course correct and I think, and even Goriana, who has this amazing jewelry line, and when she talked about it, brilliant, like the key to building her multi-million dollar brand, she's
Hmm.
like, it was being adaptable. If someone didn't
Yes.
like one of the products, we took it out and gave them something else. And I
Hmm.
think that's part of really becoming a great
Yeah.
business owner and CEO
Yes.
is exactly that. So I just want to say thank you for sharing that,
Yeah.
because it's really powerful and
Absolutely.
it's something that most people don't talk about, because it is,
Hmm.
you know, go big, go home,
Yeah.
go, go, go. And I think there's something really important when it comes to just being in the flow and being able to let go
Yes.
of something when the timing's not right,
Hmm.
and being able to fight for something when you know it is.
I agree, and it's funny because I had said, this month of January I wanted to do, hustle and flow and grind and all that kind of stuff, and that's what I wanted to talk about. And so two things came out of that. One, there was this realization in being in flow, and I heard it from Kim Coles, right? She did a
Love
presentation and
her.
she's
Yeah.
like, we put pressure on ourselves when we're seeing hustle and grind and work harder, and all these memes about if you want it bad enough you'll just work harder, 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 harder. And words matter, right? And so what pressure are we putting on ourselves managing our grind and comparing it to someone else's? So I thought
Right.
I need to talk about that. But then this surrender word happened, like surrender to the flow. And I did keep talking about kind of hustle and grind, but it's so much morphed into this context of, one, we had the 6th that happened, right, at the Capitol in the US. And then we had the 20th that happened. And this whole idea of surrendering to the flow. What does your hustle look like? What does your grind look like?
Hmm.
Does it really mean that you are now working 40, 50, 60 hours a week still for your own business? Because I will tell you, part of surrendering to me and getting rid of this head trash and really understanding was a recognition after 10 years of therapy, a recognition that when I talked about success and having a 7-figure business, not because I want to live on 7 figures, but because I want to make a 7-figure impact on the world at a minimum.
Yes.
But I was connecting deep down success to pain because I was really successful in corporate. And that was some of the worst pain I've ever felt,
That
right?
is so
Personal,
interesting,
emotional.
Laurel. Yeah.
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 And so surrendering to that, understanding it, and disconnecting,
Hmm.
that those words, hustle, grind, move, dig in, develop, get her done, for me, got to that pain piece. because
Yes.
success, grind. If you're going to be successful, you got to grind. If you're going to make it work, you got to hustle. If you got to, not
It's
just
how
side
you
hustle.
associated pain to
Yes,
success.
with all of that.
Yeah.
And so surrendering says, wait, I am in flow. I
Deconstruct.
am living my
Yeah.
purpose.
Yeah.
Deconstruct this stuff, because this would not have been
Mhm.
here. The things would not be showing up that God has planned for me if this wasn't where I was supposed to be. I
That
need to
is
pay
right.
attention, and I need to be active, and I need to be intentional. But I don't need to be feeling like, if I'm not working 80 hours, 70, 80 hours a week, like I was before, that I'm not being purposeful and I'm not going to be successful, because that's not truth.
That
That's
is
head
not truth.
trash.
Yeah. That's a story we
So,
tell ourselves. Yep.
yeah.
Well, that's
So,
amazing insight that you get there,
yeah.
because, you would have kept bumping up against that wall if you
Yes.
didn't come to that realization and be able to disassociate, those two
Mm-hmm.
things, because you
Mm-hmm.
can be successful and it not be painful too.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. And it really happens because Monday I got in the zone, and when you get in the zone, you're like, I don't want to stop, right?
Right.
Because I'm
Yeah.
in the zone. And then I finally was like, okay, you have got to eat. So I got up to eat, and I was like, okay, you got to get started again. But I didn't realize once I stopped how tired I was. And I went back and I said, but Laurel, you've already worked a 12-hour day. Stop
Yeah.
it.
You could take a break,
It's
honey.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's okay.
Well, talking about, hustle and
Yeah.
success, I mean, you really help people in two different ways when it comes to life and business. Can you
Yeah.
share a little bit of that with us?
Sure.
Because you
So,
have this incredible background in HR, and then you
yeah.
have this incredible background, in finance and
Yeah.
everything that you do and career transition. So I want people
Right.
to understand how they can work with you.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things I do, and it all comes under the two pieces that I think are key, whether you're building a business or you're building a career, and that's strategy and people. And you don't know who you need to help you get where you need to go unless you know where you're going, right? So
Mm,
if you are building a business and trying to decide, do I need to put somebody on? How do I put somebody on? How do I build this culture? I work with business leaders to really think through from the very beginning, what is my business strategy, so I can develop a good people strategy to help me get that business strategy done.
so
And really
good.
talking through the
Yes.
details of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, and it's not, yes, the HR stuff can be a pain in the butt, but it's not rocket science, but it can be painful, and you have to be detailed because it can get you in trouble. But it starts before that. It starts before that is strategy. And then the other place I really help people is in that leadership and career development space, whether you are a leader in corporate trying to figure out how you're going to run this team or how you're going to build it and how do you show up the way you want to show up, or you're in transition and feeling like I felt, do I need to find something else, or do I need to just stay where I am? Because for me, it is not my job to judge you.
Right.
This is a no judgment zone.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to tell you what job you need to have. What I'm going to do is be able to connect dots for you when we have the conversation about who you are, what you want, where you are right now, and then what you're willing to do to get there. And that may be that you're in a space right now to just sit still where you are. And that's
Mhm.
okay, because we always have those
Surrender to
times.
the flow. Yes.
Surrender to the flow. Just sit where you are. But if you have a plan, you can sit where you are because you know why you're doing that.
Oh,
And it's
yeah.
when we don't know why we're doing what we're doing that it starts to be, hard, and we start to think we're crazy, and we start to think we're stuck. And you're
That's
not
in
stuck.
anything in life. Whether you're running your
Anything.
business or you're in corporate, or yeah, when you lose your
Yes.
why, you lose it.
You lose it. And
Yeah.
so it's really for me all about helping people no matter where they are get really clear on what they're trying to do and what they want, and then help them surround themselves with the right people to help them get there,
Yeah.
whatever that looks like. That's why I call it a village. It takes a village. It took a
It
village
does
for this
take
one. So
a village. There
it
is
takes a
no
village.
doubt
Yeah.
about it. So
Yeah.
if someone wants to get in touch with you and learn more about the services, Laurel, how do they do that?
The best way to get in touch with me is just go to my website. Everything is there, laurelrutledge.com. And so you can get to me through that. You can find my podcast there. You can find my radio show there. Anything Laurel Rutledge is on laurelrutledge.com. That's the easiest way to do that.
Perfect. We will post that in the show notes. Laurel, you have been with us in talk about tribe in the
Yeah.
inspired living community for quite some time.
Mhm.
Can you just briefly share, maybe some of the takeaways or benefits that
Sure.
you have gotten from being a part of this group or community?
Absolutely. And I did. I started, I for those who are listening, I actually met Carrie at a different event. And I knew when I started this business, it's funny, we know what we know, but then we, just have to take a leap to do it. And I thought, I speak all the time, but I know I'm going to have to be on camera. And then again, God puts things in your place. When you are ready to be taught, the teacher shows up. And I went to
Mhm.
this thing, And probably the best thing I got out of this thing was meeting Carrie, because it was all about video and being on camera. And I thought,
Before the
fine,
commitment to
I'll
be
do
visible.
that. Right. And so it really, so that to me was a foundational piece that I've gotten in working with you guys, is really showing up on camera. Again, I've done speeches, I've done all that kind of stuff. I don't have any problem being in front of people. I don't like the camera. And
Mhm.
so being able to get comfortable and not so much hate the camera, but change my perspective on why I'm on camera in the first place.
Yeah.
The other thing was really the broadcast your brilliance piece that really dug deep into, okay, if you're out there, let's talk about what that looks like. Let's talk about how you connect all the social media platforms. Let's talk about your messaging. Let's talk about how you are prepared to be ready. So with the radio show, that came through networking, but I know I would not have been ready to really dig into that had I not kind of gone through that whole broadcast your brilliance piece and think, oh,
Yeah.
I can do this, because I've had media training. I had it before in corporate, but I had a more focused one with broadcast your brilliance, which was just kind of that. Now I'm in an entrepreneur space, so I'm selling me, not the company I work for. So that's a little bit different take. So there's been a lot, and setting up infrastructure and getting the website done and all of that. But it's really, for me, been about the visibility piece, because I
Yeah, for
know
sure.
that I would probably still be trying to figure out the visibility piece had I not had
Or you just
the
would not
experts
have
around me
been
to do that
visible. I remember
at all.
growing up in entertainment, we always said preparation meets opportunity, and I
Yes.
feel like, you got to start building that video muscle before you even think you
Hmm.
need it, because
Yes.
that's where the world is going right now. And when
Mhm.
you are confident in that space,
Yeah.
there are so many other things that will open up for you. And you're just such a great
Yeah.
example of that. And
Yeah.
Laurel, I'm
Thank
so
you.
excited for you.
Yeah.
I'm proud of
Thanks
you.
so
I am
much.
cheering you on. I love who you are and what you're doing in the
Yeah.
world. So thank you for sharing your story and your insight with
Absolutely.
us today. I'm going to wrap
Thank
it up
you.
with the question I always ask, which is,
Yes.
what does inspired living mean to you?
Wow. So for me, inspired living means truly, truly, without a doubt, sitting in that space where you know that you are bringing all of you to whatever you're doing, and that you are able to touch and reach and serve as many people as possible with the brilliance that you have, and the heart that you have, and the soul that you have.
Mm,
That to me is inspiring, not only for me, but my ability to inspire others, because I think that to whom much is given, much is expected.
yes.
And if I'm not serving, then I'm not giving, then I'm not inspiring. And inspiring others is what inspires me.
Mm, I feel you. And I just want to quickly say that, if you are really feeling, scared or nervous about being visible, and that critic, that inner critic is just barking so loud, go out there, right? Laurel's like, that is so me. Like, go out there and just talk to someone. Just record something and speak to that one person, because I will agree, Laurel, that what, it's the
Yeah.
feedback that keeps you going. It's like, I'm
Yes.
feeding your soul, but you're feeding mine in return. And you
Yeah.
can't get that reciprocity if you
Yeah.
are stuck and you're not moving, and you're just
Right.
waiting, for everything to line up perfectly, which, as we know, there's no such thing. So
Never.
I so love you. I appreciate you.
Thank
You
you.
best
Love you
go to
too.
laurelrutledge.com. Check out the Rutledge
Please.
perspective. You will absolutely love it. And I can't
Thank
thank you
you.
enough, Laurel, for being with us today.
Yes.
And I just
Thank
can't wait to
you.
see what you continue to create in the world, my friend.
Thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure and an honor to be a part of the Inspired Living podcast.
Well,
Thank
your
you,
family for
Carrie.
life, sister.
Yes. Thank you.
All right. We'll talk soon.